Eddie is our saviour. We have been once again saved. I mean, the last time I think back to that, was it the Norwich game in the cup competition where he came on and scored 2 late goals? Those were the times where I miss Eddie being that little potential fulfilling little young lad, and now he's coming on in place of Lacazette to win us a Premier League game. How things have changed. We're going to talk about all of that in regards to the match, and of course also the transfer speculation, which increases day by day. Lucas Torreira could be off to Atletico Madrid, and I'm pretty sure there is a player at Atletico Madrid that Arsenal might want, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast, the weekly show in which we break down all the week's news and react to the latest Arsenal match. I'm joined by 3 wonderful people. A man who says that you shouldn't trust anyone with a beard. In fact, that then means you shouldn't trust any of us on this show. Danny, mate, how are you doing, fella?
I'm very good, and I also don't trust my mum.
Who does? I'm sure they hide things from us.
They do. Yeah, I'm very good, Tom. How are you?
Good stuff. Yes, good. Making sure that you're keeping up to date with all your ABW stuff. Some good stuff going on there. I had a good chat with Chris today. Chris is going to be coming on at some point.
That's it. Finally, the jigsaw together.
Reunion. Oh, it's going to be emotional. And then we've got 2 of our expert members on as well, which is fantastic to have you guys back. First of all, Mike, absolute pleasure. I know that you're still corrupted by the other Mike that we know, but it's good to have you back, of course.
Yes, I'm trying to distance myself as much as I can from him. Just bad influence. Yeah. Thanks for having me back on, Tom.
Yeah. That's right. No problem at all. And finally, making up our lineup is someone, if we're going by Danny's mantra, this man would be the least trustworthy person on earth. How are we doing, Jared? Are we good, mate?
Yeah, I think Danny's probably spot on that one.
Yes.
No, I'm doing really good. Appreciate you having me back on. It's nice to get together and chat with you guys, especially after a win.
Yes, I mean, we say after a win, it was pretty darn close not to being one. We did kind of push it a bit. And obviously, hello and welcome to Chatbox. Thank you ever so much for tuning in live. We're going to get through plenty of your comments, and a little bit later on this evening, we'll get to your questions too. But I suppose, Jared, we should start with what you've just mentioned there, which is, of course, the game. Arsenal beating West Ham 2-1. It was a classic Arsenal game where they frustrate the hell out of you, and you're sitting there, and I was saying on the reaction show yesterday, just talking myself through the game, just stay calm, don't get annoyed about it, don't get frustrated. Eventually we will score. It's going to happen. We've done this over and over again. We pass around the edge of the box until we finally get a goal, and it did eventually. It was classic Wenger sort of game towards the end, but it was classic Unai Emery in the first half. It was sort of a combination of 2 of our favourite and least favourite, and definitely least favourite for a lot more people in terms of the Wenger era. But talk me through your emotions as we went through that battle against West Ham.
Yeah, it kind of did feel like a game from about a year ago. It just felt a little bit disjointed, like everybody wasn't quite on the same page. But at the end of the day, if you can play poorly and come out with 3 points, what more can we ask? That's something that, we've really struggled with in the past. And 38 games is really not that many, so everyone's pretty vital. So it's really good to get the win, and not a whole lot of positives to come out of it other than 3 points, but that's the important thing. And, obviously points out some stuff we need to work on.
Yeah, we do need to work on quite a few things, especially considering the opponents that we're going to be going up against next week. We'll definitely touch on that a little bit later on. Danny boy, when it came down to sort of the lineup, I kind of criticised Arteta, actually. I said that we'd just beaten Fulham with a very sort of astute performance. Mainsley had a great game. El Neni had come back and surprised so many people. And then into the next game, he decided to tinker. Ceballos came in, and of course I know Ceballos eventually came up with the goods in regards to the pass for Eddie's goal. But still, I was kind of frustrated to see more changes after such a good performance against Fulham.
Yeah, especially it's the second game of the season, and we all know every single time that you drop Mainsley, as you've trademarked, every time we drop him, we always don't play as well with whoever is replacing him. Now, there's been a reason why Saka didn't play in the FA Cup final, the Charity Shield, or didn't start and didn't play in the first game of the season. He doesn't seem like he's on it at the moment. Maybe it's all that money. He's gone from £28.50 a week wages to, I don't know, 20 grand a week. And I know he's probably knee high in Pokemon and War of Warcraft figures and all that. Like he's buying everything he's ever wanted. So it's weird that they did it. And yet again, it's shown if you take out Mainsley, whoever replaces him, we do not play as good a game. Bellerin was really quiet there, but the El Neni played brilliantly. But I think El Neni, if Arteta said to El Neni, you're going to stay for the rest of this season, you are not going to be a regular player. I don't know how that conversation goes, but Ceballos is the main man out of Xhaka, El Neni, and including himself. So Ceballos had to come back sooner or later, and Ceballos is going to be the main one playing in there. So you can't really argue with that one. But like Jared was saying, it's just a bit weird. And like you were saying with the Wenger thing, it was like the early days of the Emirates where everyone was tippy tappy, an hour and a half of us kicking the ball around. If there'd have been a crowd there, they'd have all been shouting shoot like we did in the olden days.
Yeah, I know. I mean, especially when Xhaka gets on the ball, all you're expecting to do is take a touch and back. I mean, there was a weird moment in the second half, I think, where he was about to, and then Ceballos nicked it off his feet. I would have loved to have seen Xhaka's facial reaction when up close when that happened. But yeah, it was a bit frustrating to see the players left out that had such a good game against Fulham, especially as we mentioned Mainsley. I have to say, Jared, you are on Mainsley duty this evening. You are situated underneath the hashtag Mainsley, so you're doing Owen's job of pointing towards it. Mike, there were some really good performances still, though, from some of the players. It was tough to find them, but there were still some good performances. I thought Xhaka had, for me, a solid game. I thought Xhaka had just a classic 7 out of 10 performance. I discussed it with Raf on the show. Ceballos, the last 15 minutes or so, he was electric again and obviously created the goal. But I suppose the biggest talking point was Kieran Tierney not being included in the team because of an injury in training or an injury in sort of the warm-up, and he felt his hip tighten. But that meant Kolasinac came in and he kind of struggled, and he's, for me, the biggest worry. Are you concerned with Tierney not being in the lineup possibly against the champions next week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been just nothing but quality ever since he's been healthy and he's been able to play with us. I know that in the past, I prior to his transfer, I kept on seeing rumors online that he has like a recurring small muscle injury, so it could happen anytime. But I know that we have a lot of center backs that are currently injured, so you can't really. I don't think Kolasinac would have been the first option ahead of maybe David Luiz or even Jose Mari if he was like healthier as his left center back. But yeah, it's just something really unfortunate that happens sometime with Tierney. But you could see anytime where he's actually playing left center back, he just gives the left wing back just that much more confidence, that much more liberty to go up front. So yeah, he's a big miss regardless. I mean, honestly, he's a leader on the pitch, his positioning, and I mean, it is what it is. It kind of changed the game plan, but nobody was expecting Kolasinac. I don't think he was expecting to play, to be honest with you. I mean, I legitimately cannot remember the last time he played. So I assume the conversations between him and Arteta has been kind of like, hey, there's a real possibility for you to leave. But we'll find out sooner or later, I guess.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the repercussions of this small injury. Arteta came after the game and said that he is, in quotes, fine, whatever that means, as Arteta's very sort of cagey in his post-match and pre-match and press conferences. So whether or not he does feature against Liverpool, I think it could be genuinely a deciding factor in how effective Arsenal are in that game, especially of how our left side sort of performs. Jared, I've seen that you've been quite vocal in the sort of towards Xhaka and that side of things before. What did you make of the Swiss midfielder? Because Carter Stage, I can see in the chat box, is really singing his praises, saying that our midfield can beat anyone with Xhaka anchoring that midfield. What a presence he is. But what did you make of his performance?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was kind of a typical solid game for him. He didn't jump out as, I didn't think he was in the conversation for man of the match, but I didn't think he played as poorly as a lot of people that I've seen online did. He never really stands out. He's not making the flashy plays, but he's just solid in that position. And the most kind of complimentary thing I can say about him is when you look at the games we've played since Arteta's come in, it's pretty staggering the difference. When he's in the lineup, we tend to win, and when he's out, we tend to lose. So regardless of whether it looks pretty or we like what he is doing out there, if we keep winning with him in there, I'd like to see him stay in. I don't see any reason to get rid of him just because he's not the fans' favorite. if we're winning games, I think he's going to hold that spot for quite a while, even if we do have some incoming midfielders.
On kind of the players that we do bring in. A lot of people see if, say, we brought Thomas Partey and he replaces them. I personally feel that he would partner him, and those two together perform a really sort of strong, industrious partnership together. And then maybe that enables us to move away from this back three. But it's interesting that we are still continuing on with the back three, especially with the signing of, say, Gabriel, another centre-back that came in. And Danny, had a really good sort of another second performance for Arsenal. He was solid again. It's nice that Arsenal kind of finally really investing in quality centre-backs. We've seen Saliba come in, of course, we've still got to wait a little before he gets into that first team. But Gabriel's come in and just hit the ground running, and he's transitioned almost seamlessly into the Premier League.
It's going to take a while for him to get used to the language difference because he only speaks Portuguese and probably speaks Spanish, having played. He speaks French. Yeah, French, not Spanish. That would be quite clever of me. It'd be on Mikel Arteta's level of that. Yeah, so it'd be interesting if we do come and get Partey, because I've been saying to people, where's he going to play? And I think the consensus of opinion is that we're going to go to a back four, and then we're going to play one defensive midfielder and two midfielders ahead of him in that kind of formation. But Arteta, he's a man of many talents, and he will just move everything around and change it from game to game. But it's going to be that Chris has just put in one of our WhatsApp groups the fact that Partey's agent, Samuel Liga, has just followed Arsenal, Aouar, Mikel Arteta, and Inter Milan.
Oh,
so there you go.
It's
what
done.
does that mean?
It's there.
It's over.
You no longer need to worry about it.
He's off to Inter Milan.
Bust out the champagne, boys. Bust out the champagne.
Yeah, but I think we have seen that Xhaka does get a lot of grief, but he's going to give you a solid game after game after game. But it's also that we've forgiven Xhaka for what he did. So I think it's time everybody forgave Guendouzi, because I think Guendouzi could be the legs, the dynamo, the gnat in the midfield that never stops running, and we could involve him in the team as well. So there's so many options going forward, and that's why it's just going to take a while for all the pieces to fall together. I think we'll see in the League Cup game, we'll see if some of the other players are going to come in. And also, I saw the under-23 game where Saliba played, and he played the whole game walking. He was one of the best players on the pitch for us.
There you go. It is a matter of time. I think there's been a bit of an overreaction from some people about the reason why he's not been included straight away. When we sort of saw him and the fact that he was going to be coming back early, he wasn't going to be playing in the final for Saint Etienne. He was getting integrated into training much earlier than maybe some people expected, especially because of the COVID situation. A lot of people kind of put that pressure on him immediately. He's cost £27 million. He's going to be expected to come in and perform. But in reality, the kid's less than 20 years old. He's still got a lot of development to do. We had a great time at Saint Etienne playing next to a very good player in Fofana as well. But he's in a different league now, a different quality. Certainly the quality level steps up a hell of a lot from Liga, in my opinion, to the Premier League. Chris will have me for that.
And they shut the league down, didn't they? People forget that the French league stopped.
In March, I think
they only carried on with the French Cup and the European games. So he hasn't played a game, like you were saying. Was it March they shut the league down? It's not like it was like England and Germany and Spain where they carried on. They stopped it. Done.
Exactly, and he was without sort of that match game. And I suppose the counterpoint to that would be Gabriel's transition, but he is more experienced. He's played in the Champions League for Lille, and he might just be naturally better at transitioning than what Saliba has been. You don't want to rush a young 19-year-old to come into a team, have an awful game, and then that's just on his record for the rest of his time for his first season. It is just what you want to see from a guy, is to just ease him in and let him be comfortable until he's in the right place at the right time. The club have a lot of faith in him. They gave him the number 4 shirt, for goodness sake. If they didn't think that he was going to be coming in soon, they wouldn't have given him that number. So it's a case of just being patient and waiting for him. But as you said, Danny, seeing him play so well in the under-23 side and seamlessly and comfortably is what is important to take from sort of that performance. We had a super chat from Big Leg. I don't know which one he's talking about. Says Colin needs to leave, just not suited to our system or league. Xhaka had a poor game and really shouldn't be in our first 11. He also adds that Willian was also poor. I suppose, Mike, that's the point I want to bring up about the next player is Willian. Amazing performance again against Fulham, but in this game struggled a bit. His passing was slightly off. I personally kind of cited that more down to the fact that it was Bellerin not making the right movement towards Willian, and the runs that he should have been making let him down. But there is a strong case to say that Willian did go missing. And speaking to some Chelsea fans, they let me know that there are games in which Willian just seems invisible. He isn't impactful on the game whatsoever. And maybe that was just one of those performances. Is it something that you're concerned about in terms of the consistency of Willian, or are you kind of expecting him to just put this game behind him and move on to the next one and perform to the best of his ability?
Yeah, I think he has enough experience to just put this game behind him. But another thing is too, like if we're comparing him to what he did versus Fulham versus what he did with West Ham, it becomes a little bit more difficult to judge him because Fulham they played what seemed to be a little bit more of an open game. I think they played with just 4 in the back. They went ahead of us. They went ahead and they tried attacking a whole lot of the time. Versus West Ham, realistically, they had like a line of 5 in defense, line of 4, and every time we came into attack, they would just all gather up in the box. Just something occurred to me is there's a tweet online about City fans saying, "How are we supposed to score like this?" And it was City versus Arsenal, right? And sometimes that's going to happen. They're going to come to Emirates, fans or not. They're going to play a little bit more defensively. When you put 8, 9 players in a box, it's going to be more difficult to break them down. So I don't think that it's necessarily that William just had like a really bad game. I feel like in the final third, all of our players had a issue finding that open space because it was so crowded. I mean, William had the same issue. Danny Ceballos was going up there, but always that final third. I mean, even Bellerin was having problem getting in. He didn't have that much space in the back defenders like we had versus Fulham. Then not only that, you had the opportunity like the last couple of games prior to that, we played versus Liverpool, Chelsea, City, all teams that were going to always come and attack us. They were never going to play such a defensive setup like they did. So overall, I think William, he's going to be fine for us. I'm willing to say, as crazy as this sounds, that Arteta might see him on a regular basis ahead of Pepe on the right hand flank. That's just my opinion. I honestly believe Pep is a little bit more inconsistent than William. But that's just opinion based, of course. But honestly, I could totally see him maybe not playing on Tuesday, but I'm sure he'll start ahead of Pepe versus Liverpool in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I look at their performances and I'm thinking, when it's not going to be a 10 out of 10 performance each week. Arsenal notoriously have dips in form. We have tough games. We perform one week and the next week we just don't seem at the races. And I suppose, Jared, that goes into the next question of talking about the team's mentality. One of the things that we've seen under Arteta is a shift, is the confidence back, is kind of that camaraderie and the knowledge of what everyone's roles need to be when they're on the pitch, which just wasn't there under Emery. The communication between players just wasn't there, and the communication between manager and players wasn't there. That's very different now. Danny brought up, obviously, the way that Arteta can communicate multilingually with all of these players, so, and that's important. But there is always that thing with Arsenal, with which I'd point out being a slight arrogance against certain opposition. West Ham had a pretty terrible opening game of the season against Newcastle, and they lost 2-0. And I think Graham Souness was summing up saying they offered absolutely nothing in that game. And I suppose there's part of that classic Arsenal mindset that we're going into a game where we're going up against inferior opposition. And once again, they have that opinion that they're going to be fairly comfortable. Then West Ham start to get at them. When West Ham start to attack, and suddenly they get a goal back, and that one goal hits us, and all of a sudden we're on the back foot. And had it not been for a couple of defensive clearances and a bit of luck, West Ham could have taken a 2-1 lead. So does it concern you, Jared, that there is maybe still that element of arrogance throughout the team lingering into Arteta's tenure?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know that my concern is that the arrogance level as much as I think we found a good comfort spot playing the back three against good competition that was going to have a lot of the ball towards the end of last year when we played, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, all there in close succession. And the guys kind of gained some continuity and got used to playing against that and finding ways to beat it. I know we were all kind of liking the development out of the back where we'd sort of build on the right side, get the switch to the left and, kind of free up Aubameyang. And against West Ham, that just wasn't there, with them playing 5 defenders, 3 at the back, whatever you want to call it. I think games like that more so highlight our problems in midfield where there's just not the link up we would want in general. And I think, part of that may be the tactics. A lot of it's the personnel and just the lack of games with somebody like Willian, who I was kind of split. I didn't think he played a horrendous game. I didn't think he was, the best player out there. But he was involved, I think, a lot of the times that we all saw that there was just a little bit of a timing issue. Either a guy would make a run and there'd be no service to him, or Willian a couple times played one through expecting someone to be there and they weren't. So I think improvements in the midfield will be huge in games like that, the games that you quote should win, that aren't as big of a challenge. But I think we just kind of got used to playing, not having all the possession, playing the back three against those big teams, and that style doesn't necessarily transition to success, playing somebody like a West Ham.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Danny, the first goal scorer, Lacazette, 2 goals, 2 games. Raf gave him man of the match, said that his link-up play was good, and he had a very solid performance. Do you now look at Lacazette as a player that's kind of established himself under Arteta as sort of he's going to be the go-to guy? There's not going to be too much controversy around whether Lacazette's going to leave or sign a new contract. Do you expect Lacazette to kind of be Arteta's go-to striker for the remainder of this and maybe even into next season?
Yeah, it's a little bit like looking back at when Wenger was first there. Ian Wright was the main man, and Anelka was the one who came on every now and then. Eventually, Anelka replaced Ian Wright, and then he ran away and paid for a new training ground. So I think that we have seen already this season the huge leaps and bounds that Eddie has made. Whether it's for Arsenal, he's 1 goal away from the England under-21 goal-scoring record, which I think Alan Shearer has at the moment. I think he shares it with Francis Jeffers. I think maybe is the other person he shares it with, according to the Tuesday Club. Damn you, Alan Davis, if that is wrong. So we've seen that finishing, the way that he read the ball last night to score the winning goal was magnificent from Eddie. And we're going to see so much of that. But we got to look at the way that Lacazette is working so hard for the team. Giroud was always given so much praise for the fact that he would play with his back to goal, that he'd come deep. Last night we saw so often in the game, Willian would be the furthest forward player. He'd come in from the right-hand side, which is why it made the right-hand side so ineffective, because occasionally when Bellerin did come down, remember the old Walcott days where Walcott would run down the length of the pitch like a whippet, get to the end of it and go, and cross it to no one. Bellerin was doing that all night long. And on the left-hand side, we had Aubameyang, who had quite a poor game, apart from that magnificent lobbed pass for Lacazette to score. But if it is Bellerin on the right-hand side not putting in decent passes, and it was Aubameyang on the left-hand side with Saka, and then they were running in. So they weren't putting crosses in. If they would have been putting crosses in, Lacazette wasn't really there all the time to do it. But that one goal, the first goal, that was a thing of beauty. It's so good. I remember it in slow motion with their left back. Their left back, who I thought was magnificent for them, the DR Congo bloke. Is it Dominican Republic?
Yes, Masuaku.
Yeah, they got him from France. 3 million quid, I think they paid. Or was it Olympiacos? I can't remember. I was reading his wiki. Magnificent player. I think he was close to being man of the match last night, because he was fantastic. But he must have seen Lacazette's run at the very last moment, because when you watch it, ladies and gentlemen, Lacazette is running towards goal. He's given it a zigzag swerve, and then the bloke whose name you just said that I'm not going to butcher was running behind him. Too late. Lacazette up like a salmon, nodded it in. I actually started applauding before I realised new VAR. VAR can now cancel a goal via post. You can get an email a week later saying, no, that's cancelled. That's not a goal. But magnificent. And to answer your question, rather than just blabbering on, yes, I think Lacazette's going to be the main man for the whole of this season. And we're going to see more and more great substitute appearances from Nketiah. And then next season, it's going to be a tough one for both of them.
Yeah, young ones, by the way, just Danny mentioned the word letter. That is a physical notification that gets sent out. It's like an email, just in real life. That's what a letter is.
The postman brings it.
So there you go. We had another super chat from Chris P. was asking, is the Tuesday Club back? It is. You should go and listen to Alan Davis and co. Breaking down the week's events in the most comical way possible. It's fantastic. You should definitely, if you haven't checked it out on where you get your podcast, please make sure you do go check out those guys. Mike, Danny mentioned Nketiah. That was kind of the segue I was going into next. He just does what Eddie Nketiah does sometimes. He has an amazing record, again, as Danny brought up, for the England under-21s. He continuously tries to prove me wrong, which I'm loving. I mean, the amount of times that Mike, our other Mike, is giving me a load of rubbish about Nketiah and how I brought up that. Of countless times that I never really see the potential in him making it at Arsenal in the long term. And I still stand by. I still kind of want to see more, want to see consistency and continuous goal scoring for him before I hold my hands up. But it was great to see him come off the bench, get that goal. He looks more physical. He looks that little bit more in sync with the games when he comes on. And to get that goal, to win it, will do amazing wonders to his confidence. What are your thoughts around the youngster?
I think he's great as a backup. I saw in the comments in the chat room that they're saying that they might require Yes, Mike. I actually pointed that out to Tom yesterday. They put it out in the chat that we need a backup striker. I can't tell you how much I disagree with that. I think Lacazette doesn't get the praise he deserves. He's pretty much Arsenal's Firmino. I think there's different types of strikers, and what Lacazette provides for the team is completely 100% different than what Nketiah does. So Lacazette, even though he sacrifices himself a lot and sometimes doesn't get the amount of goals that Nketiah does, Nketiah is like our fox in the box. You know, he's great for tricky games like this. His position when we're building up an attack, he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. You know, those so-called easy tap-ins. You know, we've seen so many people just kick those balls off to a side. So I honestly think he's a legit threat. I'm glad that he's sticking around. I'm glad that there's no rumors about him being loaned out or anything. So I think he offers a great alternative to the style of play that Lacazette provides for the team, and he really does changes the actual way the team plays in general, because with Lacazette he's holding up the ball a little bit more, he's waiting for the wings. With him it's all about counter. He's always going to be in the area ready to receive the ball. And then on a conspiracy theory note, we finally found out why Ceballos and Nketiah were actually fighting yesterday. They were deciding who was going to do the assist, who was going to score.
Yeah, that's clearly what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see obviously Nketiah score, but them two connecting after. It is something out of nothing. I mean, I listened to a fair chunk of podcasts of players talking about what went on back in the day. And for me, when you're looking at, Danny, are you getting a refill? Is that what's going on there? He's getting table service. He's got a little app on his phone like in Wetherspoons. Unbelievable. He's sent a little text through on his. No, he sent it by post. That's the way Danny does his things.
I was about to say, I didn't see him signal. I didn't see him nothing. I just saw
it was just under the table, 2 little clicks. That's all you got. That's all you need.
That's all you heard.
Unbelievable. Lost my train of thought now. But no, it's a great case with Nketiah scoring. I think when you look at where he sort of had those struggles, thinking that he was going to get game time at Leeds, it didn't happen. It came back under Arteta, has been given trust in him from Arteta. And to see him score is fantastic. And I'm hoping that he can capture that form on a consistent basis. It's probably likely we'll see him start against Leicester. If he can get a goal in that game as well, it'd be perfect. But Jared, kind of the last player that we need to touch on before we move on from the game is the guy that set him up, Dani Ceballos. He started in what I would describe as, I thought it was unjust to drop El Neni from the Fulham game. It's probably the right way to put it. But at the same time, if Ceballos comes in and turns up with the goods at the end, I'm not going to complain too much about it. So going forwards, are you kind of expecting Ceballos to be Arteta's go-to in the midfield?
Yeah, I think him and Xhaka are the two that he likes. They played well together last year, kind of formed a good partnership. I certainly could have saw the argument for leaving El Neni for one more game, but I think moving forward, Ceballos is going to be the guy, and he wanted him to at least get one more game in before, we really hit a pretty tough stretch coming up starting next weekend. So I think it's important for him to get in and just kind of get a little bit of that continuity back. And while he was a little up and down yesterday, I thought he had some really good moments. Obviously, the assist for the goal is the big one, but there was a moment in the second half where basically right in front of Arteta, he really got dug in. There was a little bit of a scramble, and you just saw that extra effort that he brings to regain possession and get us moving forward again. I thought that was didn't get talked about much, but I thought that was kind of a big play. Just showed kind of what he's about when he is in there and what he can bring.
It was. I know exactly the moment you're talking about. It was like a half slide tackle / turn. He somehow combined both of them into the same movement and managed to come out with the ball, which was great. But yeah, ultimately we came away with the win, which is massive. I mean, Danny, let's just touch on that before we move on. Picking up points in these types of games when Arsenal are threatened by their own ineptitude sometimes with their performances and just the way that they frustratingly can't quite get a grasp of games. Going into the Liverpool game, had we have dropped points here, it would have been arguably, even at this early stage, catastrophic for our top 4 hopes. So how big of a win is this, not just for Arsenal, but of course for Arteta as well?
Well, as I always say, when you look back through the Rothmans football history books, it's not going to have a little asterisk against West Ham 2-1 and go, we played poorly, we only got 2 points for the game. People, 9 months ago, we won 1 game in 15. 9 months ago, Arteta's been manager for 31 Arsenal games. I don't know if that includes the Charity Shield. We have lost 1 out of our last 9 games, people. Get a bloody grip. Doesn't matter how the points come. We have a 100% start to the season. When was the last time we did that? Quite a long time ago. No, my luck is actually last season, for all I know. But that luck has never happened before, Tom.
Last season we lost to Man City on the opening day, I believe.
Oh, then
so
Chelsea.
And then we lost to Chelsea. So it was a much different start than what I was about to face. But yeah, and to be fair, Arsenal notoriously over the last few seasons have weirdly not picked up too many points in their opening games, and it's kind of
Newcastle beat us
back earlier on, and it's frustrating. Actually, no, last season wasn't it Newcastle the first game, and Aubameyang scored. I'm sure that was, I think Aubameyang scored against Newcastle, and it was a season before that we lost to Man City.
Yeah, the year before we opened with City and Chelsea.
Yeah, so it was Newcastle, and then I really should know this, and Burnley. So we did win our last 2 games. You were completely.
I've got no idea what I'm talking about, Tom.
There you go. Yeah,
I'm only here to look pretty and.
Thank you, Daniel, for making me look like a fool. I appreciate that.
I think it's a perspective thing too, Tom, because I don't think I didn't see a lot of Liverpool fans online complaining that they beat Leeds 4-3. You could argue that Arsenal fans would have had a reaction of, "Wow, our defense is horrible." They allowed 3 goals. I don't see that. They're just happened. They're 2-0, 2 games, 2 wins. So I think not that we got to lower our expectations, but we got to understand that sometimes winning ugly is better than losing pretty 100% of the time. So I don't see the big deal. I understand that we weren't it wasn't beautiful Arteta ball or anything, but I will 100% win playing like crap than lose passing the ball and having 80% of possession.
I agree with you. I think it doesn't matter how you win. 3 points is 3 points at the end of the day. So that kind of rounds off our thoughts on the West Ham game. Let's go into part 2 where we get to discuss the magical world of transfers. It's happening, boys. It's happening. Partey. We haven't talked about him in a while. Well, yesterday was probably when we last talked about Partey. But the latest news that we've got, as you can see on your screen there, from Sebastian Vanelli, who I believe is a Uruguayan media reporter, because I was writing about him the other day. He's announced through his social platforms that Lucas Torreira is very close to be putting on the white stripes to the red shirt he currently wears and become an Atletico Madrid player, which, I mean, it's ridiculous to not talk about what the ramifications of that could mean in another direction. Jared, we've been on tenterhooks for the whole of what seems like our lifetime around Arsenal's transfer situation, with more of a marquee midfield signing. The 2 names that we know, I don't need to tell anyone who they are. They're Partey and Aouar. And Partey, of course, playing for Atletico, has gone on record. The club want the release clause. The release clause is £45 million, 50 million euros. And Arsenal know that to do that, they need to sell players. Now, am I just being an idiot putting 2 and 2 together and getting 57 by saying that Torreira possibly going off to Atletico Madrid could mean that Arsenal are in a much better position to negotiate a Thomas Partey deal?
Yeah, I think kind of this summer, as far as Partey, I think we all would have liked if we just jumped up front day one of the window, paid the clause, and got him in. But I think the strategy of the team the whole time is to sort of play the long game. And, as the window gets closer to closing, kind of seeing if there is some flexibility there. And, as the door's starting to close, if Partey's going to be going out, or if we make sales to where they know we have the money to pay it, at that point, they know they're going to lose him either way, and, may start to consider a Torreira plus cash type of deal. And I think that's a reasonable one. I think obviously Torreira would probably like that move. There's been a lot of talk of him going back to Italy, but it's, Fiorentina potentially, and a couple other teams who, no disrespect to them, they're not a top tier team the same way Atleti is. So I think for him, that's the best opportunity he has to go to a top team that's going to finish, likely top 3 in their league. And I don't anticipate it this coming year, but in some years have challenged and really played at a high level. So I think it's one that's a good deal all around. If I had to bet on it, I would still say if we want Party, we're going to wind up having to pay the release clause. But the fact that there is some interest from them in Torreira, gives us a little bit of hope that there might be a little leeway there, and maybe we can strike some sort of deal where we're not paying it all up front and save a little money for other transfers that we're considering.
Yeah. Mike, I won't interrupt Danny because I think he's getting his second delivery of the evening. Mike, in terms of sort of what this means for Torreira himself, without trying to get distracted around the mythical Thomas Partey, I've seen a couple of people in the chat this evening talk about how we actually shouldn't be letting him go, and saying that when he goes to Atleti, he's going to become a much better player, as Javier says there. For me, Torreira's kind of been a failed experiment at Arsenal. He came in, did amazingly well at the start. He looked to be the little terrier that Arsenal have needed, the Kante-esque performances from the small man, which then kind of faded away as he was misused by Emery into a more advanced position. And then when Arteta came in, for whatever reason, was it underperformances in training, his faith in Xhaka and Ceballos, he just couldn't get into the team. And I mean, completely understandably, this is a young guy who wants to play for his national side in a Uruguay team that's starting to get full up of decent midfielders. And he wants to be playing for his national side. And he's then going to want to be playing week in, week out to be able to do that. So are Arsenal making a mistake in selling Torreira, or do you think this is just part of the process?
Well, I'm a Torreira fanboy. So they're making a huge mistake. No, I'm kidding. No, I really do honestly rate the player. I do believe that some fans have short-term memory, because when he played in the position he plays for Uruguay, when he played for us in the position he played with Sampdoria, it was a breath of fresh air. It was exactly what we needed. He was breaking up. He got interception after interception. Didn't do anything fancy moving forward. He was just there to disrupt play, pass the ball to Xhaka to distribute. So, look, do I believe he's a talented player? Yes. Do I believe he got kind of a harsh hand just because, Unai decided to play him way more in a way more advanced role? Ironically, he did that while having Ceballos, who traditionally plays in an advanced role. When he did it in Betis, he does it in Spain, and yet they singled out Torreira and they played him as a 10 almost for whatever reason. And then after that, he got injured when Arteta came in, if I remember correctly. And he never quite got up to speed. As a matter of fact, I think we would have never even seen him last season at all, if not for the big break. So, I'm a big fan of him. I wish we could keep him. All that said, if him going to Atletico Madrid facilitates Partey coming, I think anybody should. I mean, even me being such a fan of him, you got to realize Partey's he's just a cut above. A lot of players, world-class player, almost. Some people do believe he's a world-class player. I believe he could transform the team. So it kind of goes back linked to the Martinez thing. You hate to see them go, but if the club's going to use the funds to properly bring in not only an upgrade, but a player that's specifically targeted and admired by Arteta, I think it's a bit of business that, we just have to do. Because at the end of the day, with Arteta's new role, he seems to have a little bit more say. So he'll be missed, sure, but if he's leaving and Partey's going to come in, I think we'll be better off. I think we'll be okay. As an old example, I once brought up why he doesn't Overmars get mentioned a whole lot. Well, he got replaced with Pires. So
it's
you know what I mean? Yeah.
It is a good example. I don't use this thing about saying you never remember the guy who got a silver medal, but it kind of feels in that same scenario of if they're replaced by someone that is miles better or does miles better for the team, you kind of don't miss that person. So if Torreira does end up going and it means that Thomas Partey can come in the other direction, it'll be massive for the team. Danny, kind of. Not to pick on your age at all, but you've experienced Arsenal for a fair few years, it's fair to say. looking back, Arsenal have typically been a side in the past that used to scare teams in the dressing room, that have won games in the tunnel. And it was a case of their sort of intimidation, the size of the players, their stature, their reputation, especially during sort of the Wenger era, and then partly during the George Graham era as well, and prior to that too. But Thomas Partey is, for me, a technically intelligent player, someone that is also combining that with his stature, his physical side, his presence. For you, and I don't know how much of Partey you've seen, but in terms of just from looking at him and maybe some of the clips you've seen of him, does he hark back to kind of that intimidating feature that Arsenal have kind of lacked in their team over the years?
He does remind me. I've seen a couple of games. I'm actually an Atletico fan, but I haven't really watched much of La Liga last season. I intend to get back into watching that and Serie A. Now that Arsenal are back, I've got my football bug back. I've already watched a dozen games this season already. But he does remind me a little bit of that Vieira, the intelligence, the stature, the passion to win the game, and that's what we want, and that's the kind of thing that we really need. But it like you were saying, with Torreira possibly going there, that in the grand scheme of things in 2020, Atletico are the bigger team, the better team, the more challenging team. They're on the verge of being the second best team in La Liga, because Barcelona have been told they're not allowed to buy any players until they pay off some of that £500 million debt, whatever it is they've got. So it's a little bit weird. It shows how good a player he must be if he is involved in the deal of Partey coming here and him going there. But like Mike was saying, that having Torreira play in that position, he had a magnificent World Cup, and we thought 27 million, that's an absolute steal. Post World Cup, he'd have been a £35 million player. And when he came in, he was playing in the best position, which is in front of the back four. He was getting man. I mean, how often does a player playing in that position get man of the match? He got 3 or 4 of them in the first half of the season. But I think a combination of Emery, combination of living in the UK, and a combination of playing in the Bergkamp position broke him. And sometimes when you do that to a player just goes, no, I'm having none of it. I don't want any more. He's seen the bright lights of maybe Italy or going to Spain, and we all know South Americans thrive in Spanish football. And Atletico, I think that they're on the verge of being a real big team, a title challenger again. But they got the decent players, and it's going to be interesting. But as Partey, he does remind me of a no-nonsense, skillful, intelligent, being able to read the game and get stuff done, whether it's defending, attacking, creating. He's there for everything. And plus, you look at him and you think, oh, I'm not going to mess with you. You look at Torreira, you want to pat him on the head and give him some sweeties. He said sausages. Maybe he prefers sausages to sweeties. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, Tom.
A way to tame him. Yeah, no, the thing with Partey is that what I look at him is that, yes, he can tackle, yes, he can intercept, yes, he's physical, and he can do all those things. But it's his actual intelligence on the ball that I love. It's his way that he beats the press. If you watch some of the clips, and we did an updated version of the Tactical Breakdown, which I know if you haven't checked it out already, it's John's favourite show. So John will tell you where to go to find it. So make sure you do. But it's what it shows you on that is how well he drives the ball out from the back. When he picks the ball up, he goes past players. It's not like how Messi goes past a player or a Hazard goes past a player. It's violent is the word I would use to describe the way he drives up the pitch. It's so overawing, and it's really quite it's perplexing, because you don't know how he doesn't lose the ball, but he doesn't, and he just drives up the pitch and then intelligently lays the ball off to the right person. And he's just got every. And I saw a comment in the chat box earlier on, which I did disagree with, about him being a jack of all trades and master of none. Nico pointed that out, but there are some things he's not amazing at. His shooting needs improving in terms of its consistency. When he gets his foot around the ball, he can strike the ball really well. His sort of not positional awareness, because he's playing in a Simeone side that is drilled week in, week out to know what their defensive rules are. And I don't imagine he'll get that same rigorous defensive coaching that he would have got. He'll still get very good defensive coaching, as you've seen from Arteta, who's improved our side. But I don't see it being as rigorous as a Simeone type style of coaching. But what he is that he is master of beating the press. He is a master of breaking up play and being a physical presence on the pitch, and also being intelligent at the same time. So I'd love to see it happen. If the Torreira deal facilitates it, I'm all for it. But the thing is that Arsenal do need to sell to buy. And that kind of brings us on to the last point that I want to briefly cover before we go into user questions. So if you've got questions in the chat box, now is your time to throw them in for the last 15 minutes that we're going to be on for. But Jared, I just very want to briefly touch on sort of the other players that Arsenal could look to sell. There was another link today with, I believe it was Newcastle. I will double check it. Being linked, it was West Ham being linked with Callum Chambers, and he's one of the people on our books that Arsenal could look to sell. But he's not the only one. If you're the management, if you're Edu in the recruitment side, who are you looking at in this Arsenal team and thinking, right, you're expendable, we can move you on and get some money for him?
I mean, I think Torreira is the obvious one. I think we all agree he's going to go. Beyond him, it sounds like in the event that Napoli is able to sell Koulibaly, that Sokratis is kind of a done deal. That'll kind of take place at the same time. Beyond that, Kolasinac would be the top of my list to move out. I think we have Tierney on the left side, obviously. If we're playing in a back three, we can move Tierney to the left wing back. We've got Saka that can play over there. Mainsley can play over there. So we've got a lot of options, and I don't think we'll miss him at all in what he brings. Additionally, I think either Holding or Chambers, I could see one of them going. I've heard Fulham, I've heard Newcastle, I've heard Leeds United, West Ham, a number of teams that would be interested. And to be honest, I'm not sure which one I would rather keep. Holding has played reasonably well. He's done a fine job. I don't have a huge complaint on him in general. Chambers, I think, gives us a little more versatility. He can play a couple spots. And prior to the injury, I thought played really well last year. So on the one hand, you'd like to see him come back and get a shot when he's healthy and see if he can continue to progress. I guess the other side of the argument is he left playing pretty well, so his value is at a good spot. If he doesn't bounce back from the injury the way we all hope he will, moving him out, may not end up being a bad bit of business either.
Yeah, I think it's a case of we need to move on the players that are surplus. There's also an element of the homegrown side of things to think about. We have got too many foreign players in the squad right now, and they do need moving on. The problem is always going to be, who on earth are we going to get to buy some of these players? Because some of them, you genuinely have to question their integrity if they're coming in for some of those players. But yeah, hopefully Arsenal can move some of them on as quickly as possible. Right, let's move into user questions for the last 10 minutes or so. Danny, you've got the easiest one of the night from Patrick Carlson, who says, how do we beat Liverpool?
Let them have the ball and do what we did against them in the league game, which they put out a pretty strong team. And in the Charity Shield, where we had more of our important players out than they had out, Klopp will have it's scratching his head, making sure they will be worried coming and playing us again. They'll see we've got the pace of Aubameyang, the goals of Lacazette. We've got the Leno in goal, who he's been out for ages, and so he's going to get better. And he will be back up to the standard he was, where he was our best player for the 1.5 seasons he was before the injury. And I think the main thing we need to concentrate on is the midfield, and maybe not playing Willian, because Willian gave the ball away a lot. Pepe does need the chance to shine, and when you can have the pace against them when he does get the ball. Also, I'm not sure I'd play Bellerin. I'd probably play Maitland-Niles again, because Bellerin has really not impressed me at all. And I think if we've got the pace, so let them have the ball on the break, do them like we did in the last two games. That's how we do all the big teams. Let them have the ball, do them on the break, which is what teams do to us, like West Ham did last night.
Yeah, no, I 100% get what you're saying. It sounds like it'd be a hard question, but actually, if we just kind of do what we've done already, and isn't it nice to be going into an away game against a big team without being as scared as we usually are going away to the big sides? It's nice having that element of confidence about us once again. Mike Christopher Fung says, if we get rid of the right midfield pieces in this window, how long do you think it will take Arteta and the squad to adjust to optimizing a back four formation?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I'm not the tactical genius here, to be honest with you. But if I were to guess, look, I think if we do get the constant links with another midfielder, I think he already has it in his head that we're going to play maybe 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. I have my doubts that both Partey and Aouar are both going to come in, because then I feel like that's going to leave one of our four main midfielders out. But honestly, I mean, Tierney, historically, even though he's playing as left center back for us, historically he's been a left back. Bellerin's been our right back. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Partey, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Athletic Madrid play 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3,
Yeah, 4-4-2
and then
or 4-3-3.
4-4-2, 4-4-2, 4-3-3. So and and Leon, I believe, play 4-3-3 as well. So both of those players are already the rumors, right? They're already linked in. I think it's just moving one piece and putting another piece. It's almost like upgrading like a car almost. It's like, you're updating players to just a higher standard. So yeah. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to take us a long time, and our front three won't change. I mean, honestly, out of the front three, you honestly, I just see William and Pepe being the toss-up. But I think that's going to happen almost immediately. The only reason we're not playing 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 right now is because we don't have the manpower in the midfield. As of right now, we're not playing with the 10. Everybody knows about the Ozil situation. I'm not sure Arteta fully trusts Pepe. That's just my opinion. So maybe that's why Williams playing on the right. And then we don't have enough midfielders if you think about it. I mean, Torreira seems to be on the way out. We got Ceballos, Xhaka. After that, you're depending on Neni and Willock. So I think it's just squad depth is not allowing us to have that. But I'm sure once he has the pieces, I'm sure he's going to change it up.
Jared Richie Hartnett says, would you play Ozil on Tuesday? You get the easy ones.
Thanks for the Ozil question. I appreciate it. If they want to put him in, I don't see a problem with that. I don't really care one way or the other. He may bring something to a game like that, but I don't really see him having any sort of an impact with the first team this year. I know that's kind of been discussed since we are stuck with them. Will we put him in and play? I'd be shocked if we see him a single minute in the Premier League this year. I think between the two guys that are kind of outcast, I think Guendouzi is the one who may play some cup games, Europa League games, and kind of play his way back in and see where that leaves him. But I don't anticipate Ozil playing a minute of Premier League time this year if I had to bet on it.
It is Wednesday, isn't it, Danny? We're confirming that game. I think it is Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, it is Wednesday, I think.
It is Wednesday, yes. So I mean, Richie, sorry, you got to wait one more day. You got too overexcited there, thinking it was coming up a day early. I have to say, though, regarding Ozil, and Guendouzi, if neither of them play on Wednesday, it's a really weird situation. It gets even weirder, doesn't it? Because if Arteta turns around and says that everyone on this season is sort of on a clean slate, a new level, we turned over a new leaf, everyone starts on the same, and then they don't get included in at least the squad, it's confusing. Go on, Jared.
Yeah, I think he's honest when he says that it is a clean slate for everybody. I mean, when he came in, Xhaka was almost an outcast. Now he's a mainstay. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was kind of on the edge of the team. Now he's played kind of a very important role. And I think there is a clean slate for everybody. I just don't think Ozil brings the things that he wants in the team. I don't think it's a matter of any of the past stuff standing in the way. I just don't think what he brings is something that Arteta's looking for or wants in the team. I don't think he wants a traditional number 10 who plays no defense, doesn't track back. It just doesn't fit his style. And I think we'll see that this year with Guendouzi, because he's one I do expect at some point to get some minutes. And I think we'll at least have an opportunity to work his way back in. And I hope he does, because then we've either got another good midfield player or a guy who's probably one of our more sellable assets, assuming he's in the team and playing at a decent level.
Danny Alan de Souza says, do you think we will regret selling Martinez? Leno almost broke his neck yesterday diving over a player, which it was a spectacular fall. But if you didn't see it, you should definitely check it out. Do you think we'll regret selling Martinez?
Possibly, because that is the kind of freak injury that maybe happens to a club once every 5 or 6 years. And we saw with Leno being out, how often does a team lose their first choice goalkeeper? Very rarely. It's usually when you're having a nightmare like De Gea or unpronounceable at Chelsea, where you're thinking, I wish they would get injured, we could play somebody else. But that way he landed on his neck last night, at the last moment he turned his head, which I think may have stretched his little neck. If he'd have gone down and gone, so it's like in MMA, people get knocked out, and the only reason they don't hurt themselves is because they've gone limp because they're unconscious. And Leno wasn't unconscious, so that really, I've seen that in replay. You think, oh, that's horrible. But yes, but I think mainly it's best. We kept the best goalkeeper. Martinez is great, but he's only been great for 15, 20 games, and he wasn't going to stay. They've tripled his wages, but it's going to be when we've only got Matt Macey, 6'5" Matt, or 6'7" Matt Macey. He's played lower league football. He was rubbish at Plymouth. He played for Luton. He's played for, I think it was Luton. He's played for all these lower league teams and hasn't shone at all. So he is there just filling spaces. I mean, I'd expect Leno to even play midweek against Leicester because I saw with we had one of the young goalkeepers playing in the under-23s, and he was up like a salmon plucking things out of the air. So maybe he'll get a game. But you do need a strong number 2, as we found out over the years. And we've had so many rubbish goalkeepers like in the Almunia days, and we had no competition. And then that doesn't encourage the goalkeeper to get on with it. But it's we're going to have to get somebody in. But I think long term, if anything happens to Leno, we'll be looking at and going, oh, we really should have kept hold of him.
Yeah. Obviously, we're looking to bring in this runner, Alex Runnerson, which is one of the best named footballers I've ever heard of, which is fantastic. There's also rumours that Arsenal might go out and get 2 because apparently Matt Macey is considering his sort of position. I can't blame him. I mean, he's played 2 senior appearances now. I think he's 27. So it makes complete sense for him to be looking at where he can get more minutes at a different club. So it may mean that we have to go out and buy 2, which could obviously then eat further into our transfer budget. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens with those ones. Final question then, Mike, from Daniel Robert. He says, apparently Lazio have offered £8 million for Mustafi. Would you do it?
Nope. No, I'm actually a big Mustafi fan, to be completely honest. I think he's one of the most. No, I don't think so, man. Honestly, I'm really easy. I'm very easy and very forgiving on the players, but I do believe he has a great comeback story like Xhaka. To be completely honest, I mean, you could see overall he had the coach's complete backing. I feel like he was actually starting games. He was starting games over forgot who our other center back is, top of my head. But it seems like Arteta seems to rate him higher than some fans, which I know that sometimes could be frustrating because admittedly, I'm not the biggest Xhaka fan, and I know that drives Tom crazy. But with time, even I could admit that his on-field has improved. So I can't judge a player and just disregard him if he's upping his game under like a new system and a new manager. So I guess it boils down back to the whole Torreira Martinez thing that I brought up earlier. If the club has a plan to do something with the transfer funds that we're bringing in, then I'm just gonna sit back and trust the process, so to say. So if him leaving brings in a potential target that Arteta really wants, then I'm all for it. As of right now, we're overcrowded on center backs anyway, so I think it's pretty fair to say one of them's gonna go. I mean, one of Holding, Chambers, Socrates, or Mustafi will eventually leave the club this summer, probably.
Yeah. I think when you look at sort of how much he's worth now, I think £8 million is massively below that value. You look at the way he came back under Arteta. I mean, he cost us 35 odd million quid in the first place. He's still only like 28, I think, 27, 28 years old. And that's obviously he's in his prime years for Mustafi, or whatever you would joke on to make about that. But still, he improved a lot under Arteta. He was one of our best. I mean, when he got injured in the semi-final, how many people were turning around and going, oh crap, like we're now without him for the FA Cup final, and Holding's going to have to play. And I mean, that goes to show sort of the journey that he's been on. I wouldn't take £8 million for him. I think that is underselling what he is worth. Especially for his age, what he's done, playing in the Premier League and everything else. And I think he's a better player than what some people give him credit for. I know he makes mistakes. I get that. And they're very high-profile ones when he does. But he has been exceptionally consistent, it's fair to say, over the last, say, half season. So it's a weird one. I just wouldn't be looking at Mustafi as one of the centre-backs that we should really be moving on. I'd be looking more towards a Chambers or more towards a Socrates than maybe a Mustafi. But of course, I guess Chambers is kind of protected by the homegrown side of things at the moment. But we'll see what happens come the end of the transfer window. So that is where we're going to finish off today's show. Thank you ever so much, everyone that has tuned in this evening for our breakdown of everything that happened over the last week, the West Ham game, transfers, etc., etc. Thank you, Jared. Much appreciate your time coming on this evening at short notice, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me. It was nice to come on and talk to you guys, especially a day after a win.
Yes, I'll make sure I need to get you on after wins, Jared, if that's the case. I'll get that in.
That's perfect. I hope I'm on often then.
Danny boy, always a pleasure, mate. I think we've learned that we can trust a man with a beard. And I mean, he has the trust of his daughter that brings him anything he wishes throughout a podcast, it seems.
That's true. Yeah, it's been fun, Tom. Cheers.
No problem at all. And finally, Mike, thank you so much for coming on, mate, and providing us with your Mike-corrupted thoughts.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you having me on.
No problem at all. Make sure you go check out the guys on Twitter. You can find Jared at JC_AFC. You can find Mike at Mike Hernandez, or Mike Hertz, I should say, FC. And you can find Danny at is it underscore? Or don't find him. He doesn't want you to find him. Leave him alone.
Don't just annoy you.
Of course, go and check out the AFC podcast, Bergkamp Wonderland, and go and check out those guys and what they're doing over there, because it's fantastic stuff. They're on pretty soon after games, like I am. I'm pretty sure you can finish watching me and then hop over and watch those guys, because I think you start about half an hour after the game, don't you?
We've moved it because you're more organised, so we're on.
I'm so sorry. Well, there you go. You can finish watching me, and then you can hop over to the Bergkamp Wonderland and go watch those guys. So you've got your post-match games sorted. Thank you so much, everyone that's tuned in this evening. Thank you, of course, to our expert members. It's getting to the point now where it's difficult for me to actually say all of your names, but I still do it. So thank you to Ed and Abdullah and Root and Grass and Afghan, Zamir, Jack, Chris, Victor, Iron, Mahir, Ashwin, Owen, Mike, Cole, Gary, Matt, Abid, Jasmine, the real Janice, Gunnar. I've gone past Mike. MRT, Oli Solo, Glenn Mosaic, PMHK, Brian Robles, someone called Jared Carver, Aaron Letchford, Alex McCarthy, Avon, Daniel, Rohit. That at the bottom there does in fact say John, who loves tactical breakdowns. And from Dial Square to Where, Emmanuel, Robert Parker, Cutter Stage, Freddie Stebbings, and our new expert member who signed up today, Callum Crichton. So thank you to everyone that has signed up and is helping supporting the channel. With the things that are going on in life right now, it's genuinely really appreciated with all the help you're giving to us. So thank you ever so much. We will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.